A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum friends. All praises to Allah Almighty, who created the heaven and the hell and make the darkness and the light. Before starting the lecture, I pray that you live a happy, healthy and prosperous life. My name is Sayyida OMAMA and let's discuss the middle cranial fossa in detail. Here you can see the middle cranial fossa highlighted in green, and it is formed at the inferior of the base of the skull. Here zoomed you can see the middle cranial fossa. It is formed by the body of the sphenoid. This is the smaller portion, while the expanded portion is formed by the greater wing of sphenoid, the petrous part of the temporal bone, the squamous part of temporal bone, and last but not the least, the parietal bones. These bones form the concavities, and this body of sphenoid form the raised elevated portion. Now these concavities lodge the temporal bone of the cerebral hemispheres. To anterior of this middle cranial fossa is the lesser wing of sphenoid, and posteriorly it is bounded by the petrous part of the temporal bone. First we are going to discuss the opening in the sphenoid bone. Here you can see the sphenoid is formed by this is the lesser wing of sphenoid, this is the body of sphenoid, and this is the greater wing of sphenoid. Between the body of sphenoid and lesser wing of sphenoid you can see the optic canal, and the optic artery and ophthalmic artery are the two arteries that passes through this optic canal. You have to remember the optic canal and ophthalmic artery. Now here you can see the superior orbital fissure. This is the largest slit opening, and this, as you can see, it is formed between the lesser wing of sphenoid and the greater wing of sphenoid. Now the nerves and the veins that passes through this superior orbital fissure is the left of the lacrimal, frontal, trochlear, oculomotor, nasociliary, abducens, superior ophthalmic vein. These are the vessels that passes through the superior orbital fissure. You only have to remember left on as ophthalmic vein. Okay, now let's coming to the next opening is the foramen rotundum. This foramen rotundum lies posterior, it's posterior and on the lateral side, so it is posterior laterally to the superior orbital fissure. Now the important nerve that passes through this foramen rotundum is maxillary nerve. So you have to remember that maxillary nerve passes through this foramen rotundum. Now the other opening is the foramen ovale. This foramen ovale lies posterior laterally to the foramen rotundum, and the nerve that passes through this foramen ovale is the mandibular nerve, right? Now coming to the next opening is the foramen spinosum. This foramen spinosum also lies posterior laterally to the foramen ovale. Now most important, middle meningeal artery passes through this foramen spinosum, right? Middle meningeal artery. Once again I will repeat, maxillary nerve passes through foramen rotundum, mandibular nerve passes through foramen ovale, and middle meningeal artery passes through this foramen spinosum. One another most important point about foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, and foramen spinosum is that all of these openings perforate the greater wing of sphenoid. As you can see here, it perforate the greater wing of sphenoid, perforate the greater wing of sphenoid, perforate the greater wing of sphenoid. Okay, so this was all about the openings and the vessels that passes through these openings. Okay. One thing that I didn't tell you about in the previous slide is the foramen lacerum, right? Foramen lacerum highlighted in yellow. This foramen lacerum is formed at the apex of the petrous part of the temporal bone, right? And at the side of this foramen lacerum is the opening of carotid canal, and through this carotid canal internal carotid artery passes through, right? This is important, you have to remember this. Now coming to the next slide. Here are some features of the middle cranial fossa. Here you can see in front of the body of sphenoid is the chiasmatic sulcus, right? And behind the chiasmatic sulcus is the tuberculum silli, right? In front of the body of sphenoid is chiasmatic sulcus. Behind the chiasmatic sulcus is tuberculum silli. Now behind this tuberculum silli is the sella turcica. And the most important thing about talus turcica is that it lodges the pituitary gland, right? It houses the pituitary gland. Now inferior to this sella turcica is the hypophyseal fossa, right? Inferior to the sella turcica. Here it isn't written over here sella turcica, but I am telling you that behind or inferior to the sella turcica is the hypophyseal fossa, and posterior to the sphenoid bone is the dorsum silli. Now there are two tubercles anteriorly on the dorsum silli, and these tubercles are called as the posterior clinoid process, right? Most important. Here more prominently you can see this foramen lacerum. Here is foramen ovale. Here is the foramen spinosum that I discussed in the earlier slides. Okay, now coming to the tegmen tympani. This is a flat bone, and this is a major barrier that prevent infection from the tympanic cavity from the temporal lobe. How? As because tegmen tympani forms the roof for the tympanic cavity, right? Tegmen tympani forms the roof of the tympanic cavity, and this middle cranial fossa lodges the temporal bone, right? So tegmen tympani prevents infection from temporal bone and to the tympanic cavity. Okay, now proceeding further, the last but not the least, this is the major area. It's H-shaped, it's called the PTERION, and it is thinnest area. If it is asked in the viva that which is the thinnest portion in the middle cranial fossa or at the side of the skull or at the lateral view of the skull, so this is the thinnest area, the thinnest region, the thinnest portion is the PTERION. It is the H shape, and the most important that the middle meningeal artery pass through this area, right? Now at this side the artery may be damaged after a blow to the side of the head. If in case a blow is there on the side of your head, there are major chances that your middle meningeal artery may got damaged. This PTERION is formed or unite the frontal, parietal, temporal and sphenoid points, right? So thank you for watching. If you like my video, so please subscribe to my channel, and thanks for today.